By April of 2002, just about all of Al-Qaeda's leaders had been captured, killed, or had fled Afghanistan. They really didn't have a presence left after the spring of 2002. But from that point forward, that's when mission creep started to set in pretty quickly. And as a lot of the documents show for this book, very bluntly, people said we lost focus, became unclear what our goals and objectives were, both militarily and politically and strategically. And for the last 19 years, we've never really been able to set out explicitly what we were hoping to accomplish in Afghanistan.
Because of politics and economics and ultimately technology too, we have erected these barriers around ourselves, and we operate in kind of ingrown ways, to the point that I think a lot of folks are less aware of the rest of the country, less aware of vulnerability and suffering than they even would have 2 generations ago. And I'm not saying there was like a golden age of American empathy when we were all sort of, let's state the obvious. We've had massive violent struggles over racial progress, in the same period of time that there was also some post-war sense of connectivity. And part of the reason why I sort of draw this nuanced view of it is because I think if we say that there never was a greater awareness of other places, then it's also sort of almost exculpating the president, because what we're doing is saying things haven't gotten worse when they have gotten worse in measurable ways. And so I sort of like to be able to say, just because they were bad doesn't mean they couldn't get worse.
I don't think I or anyone in that classroom was prepared for what happened, because in prison you have to build these emotionally protective walls. But when people began to write about their trauma, their suffering, their loss, their grief, those walls melted. And as you can see, these are, the 28 students, they call the 400 Club, which means they all bench over 400 pounds. Big guys, prison tattoos, standing up there, their hands shaking, in some cases crying. And it just became this explosive experience.
Jeffrey Epstein had a whole ecosystem around him of people that helped him. I mean, he was a guy that really didn't even tie his own shoelaces. He had, he had somebody to do everything for him. And so these people that were part of his, his life, or this system that he had built, were, involved everyone from the butler who answered the door where these girls were, to a chef who was in the kitchen who, made them snacks, to the women, of course. He had other young women who arranged his schedule, to the, the housekeepers who cleaned up after, he did these incidents, and the pilots who flew the jets, where he had 2 private planes. The driver, he had drivers, that picked up the girls. So it was a whole ecosystem around him.